Edmonton. Like, oh my god, like if they bow out like right out of the gate, okay, like wow.
Welcome to Manhattan,
That
Connor McDavid.
oh no, that's literally my hell. Thank you for describing literally my hell.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh man, but like I don't know. With all like the craziness of this past week and like with the Penguins about to be swept in the first round, it's been an interesting week for me. So much so that one night God appeared to me and he was trying to ease my doubts. But, honestly, I told him everything's okay. But I was sincerely glad that he reached out.
Happy Easter?
And welcome back, everybody, to the best music podcast on all sides of planet Earth. And the way that we measure that distinction is we travel all the way to Ukraine and we go all the way to Uganda, but we take the long way around. This podcast is indeed called Hey, Listen to This. And it is hosted by two dashingly good-looking men who share the same middle name. I am the one. I am the only. I am the one who, is, just really happy that he's a Pittsburgh Penguins fan nowadays in retrospect. Ryan James Kearns.
And I am the one, the only, the right there with you, even though it shouldn't have gotten to the point where it got, Matthew James Durzik. And for those of you who don't know what it is that we talk about here on Hey, Listen to This, every week, me and Ryan get together. We talk about an album, a music album of our choice, and how we choose it depends on perhaps what we like, what our preferences are, or perhaps the time on the calendar, because we sometimes like to talk about new releases in the calendar year, or relatively new releases. Or perhaps there's a theme going on. If there's something we're celebrating, whether it's a month or a week or a day, we may talk about an album that way too. But in any case, we talk about the album track by track, note for note, line for line, pick out what we like, what we don't like, what we thought stood out, what we thought could have been improved. And at the end of every episode, we fill out our scorecards, give it a rating out of 10, recommend an album based on the one we just talked about, and pick a new album anew to restart the cycle. So Ryan, last time on Hey, Listen to This, what did we talk about?
On last week's episode of Hey, Listen to This, we talked about the debut self-titled album by The Cars. And for me, I was very happy doing that review. It was like I talked about during that whole review. The Cars were a group up until the point doing that review that I claimed that I didn't know any songs by, but I found the song that I needed. And I was quickly proven wrong. So, yeah, but in retrospect, it was a solid experience for me. And I'm always a fan of, digging into, different avenues and nooks and crannies of gaps that I have in my musical knowledge. So, I'm going to flip it back over to you, Matthew. It's safe to say that you were a lot more familiar with the Cars going into said review. So what were your thoughts, feelings, experiences? Do you think I gave the album a fair shake? Or are you looking for a new co-host on Hey, Listen to This?
No. The vacancy has been filled and will remain filled for a very long time. But it was a fascinating review just because of the spots where we agreed and the spots where we disagreed intersecting with each other the way that they did. But I was happy to do that review, man, because that's an album I really appreciate, and I'm glad that you appreciate it too. We didn't appreciate it exactly the same, though, if you're looking to find out in what way we appreciated it or did not appreciate it. The review is up, and we will tell you later on in the episode how to find our episodes and other sorts of neat, fun things that you can do to connect with us. So, that being said, the cars are in the garage. Pun fully intended. And we're now on to this week's episode, Ryan, and it is your turn to pick what we're talking about. What are we talking about this week on Hey Listen to This?
On this week's episode on Hey Listen to This, we are going back to the year of our Lord, 2024, and we were discussing an album that, around the time of its release, we weren't able to review for a couple of different reasons, but for the main reason why, that it was more my wheelhouse. This is like more Ryan James Kearns core. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the review. So I figured, after just doing the Tyler the Creator review and doing like a bigger, more well-known album, I might as well just share a band that, the way I discovered this band, ironically enough, was, I don't want to say kind of like your mindset when it comes to picking up CDs, music at half price books or discount music store. It was mainly that I came across an album called We Are Beautiful, We Are Dune by a band called Los Campesinos, and I was just like, you know what? These cats seem like they know what they're doing. They seem like they're a fun group. So I bought the CD and I really enjoyed it. But then, years down the road, I never listened to any of their other music up until the point that they released their 2024 album that we're talking about here today, called All Hell. So, for those of you who are out there, including probably my co-host Matthew, who are wondering, what is a Los Campesinos? And is it literally the Spanish translation for the peasants or the country person? Well, yes, but on the flip side, dear listener out there, let me do a brief overview of Los Campesinos as a collective, what made them impactful in the music scene, why we're talking about this album here today, and, just do a brief overview of their discography. So, the group formed in 2006 at Cadford University in Wales, and for those of you who are wondering where Cardiff University is at, it's at Cardiff, Wales. So yeah, there you go. And this was around the time, early 2000s. For those of you who aren't, aware of what was going on in the early 2000s, this is where we're having the indie sleaze kind of era. This is the indie explosion. So the group's coming into this kind of scene. So while this has been a group that has been kind of has turned over a lot of its core members, but the lead singer Gareth Paisley and Tom Bromley on guitar have been the two main members, as to the extent of my knowledge. I could be incorrect on that. I am a human being after all. But yeah, the group, as you do during the time of the early 2000s, can you guess how they built their following?
If that's the era we're going with, I'm gonna take an educated guess and say MySpace.
And you are correct. And so, remember MySpace, man? Social media networks used to be so simple.
Yes, they did, and oh, what times those were.
So yeah, they built a massive following on said website through their early demos of songs like "You, Me, Dancing." And for those of you who are wondering why I basically shouted that, is the song is actually titled that with an exclamation point after every word. So there you go. And then the other song that I want to reference is "Death to Los Campesinos." So those demos came out within months of the band forming, and by August of 2006, they were already opening for Broken Social Scene. Now, are you aware of Broken Social Scene as a music fan?
Aside from knowing that they exist, not really.
Okay. Yeah, they're kind of a blind spot for me as well. Like, if you were to play like probably their biggest song for me, I would be like, oh yeah, I'm vaguely familiar with that. But that's a group I need to go discog diving into one day. But yeah, so yeah, the big notable albums in Los Campesinos' discography as a whole are their debut Hold On Youngster, released 2008. This album defined what we like to call tweecore, and the vibe that this album was bringing to the table is high energy, chaotic, and literate. The album earned rave reviews for its musicianship through NME, and NME itself famously criticized its lack of cohesiveness. So that's fun, man. But like you were asking at the end of last week's review, why Los Campesinos and All Hell really relates to Cole Caulfield. Well, it's because of this high energy, chaotic, high scoring kind of mentality that Cole Caulfield kind of has. So, and the next album that I do want to talk about on the table with Los Campesinos is their 2010 album. This album is widely considered to be their crowning achievement. It's their fan favorite, and it was a turning point into darker territory where maybe this could be. I don't want to say Igor by Tyler the Creator was turned into darker territory, but it was definitely a turn into a different kind of artistic territory. But that album in question is called Romance is Boring, and this album features the track "The Sea is a Good Place to Think of the Future." And that track is now hailed as a foundational classic for the modern emo genre. And yeah, just a couple of the albums that I want to do quick mentions on, because the other big album of the three that I have listed here is actually the one that we're going to be talking about here today, All Hell. I already kind of talked about their one album, We Are Beautiful, We Are Doomed, released in 2008. It was released months after their debut. It's a fan favorite. In 2011, they released Hello Sadness, basically a more polished and heartbroken follow-up to Romance is Boring. 2013, they released Snow Blues. That album's noted for sharper production and the song Avocado Baby. And then in 2017, they released an album called Six Scenes, and it's just essentially a victory lap for the group. And yeah, what the main thing about Los Campesinos that's made them so notable over such a stretch amount of time, because you think about all the bands that came out of the early 2000s, there were so many within the indie pop scene. And for Los Campesinos to be doing what they're doing now, that's essentially what's made them that impactful as an artist, because they survived and thrived entirely on their own terms, and they really put their nose to the grindstone with the independent work that they basically built for themselves over the last 2 decades. And yeah, the album that we're talking about here today, my friend, All Hell, is basically a testament to their longevity. And yeah, it's actually their highest charting album to date. Peaked at number 14 in the UK. So that's fun. So yeah, a little bit of an overview of the group, and kind of a touchstone on a couple of their different albums. And I kind of already went over my backstory with Los Campesinos, so I feel like I kind of skipped over a step in our usual back and forth here. So I'm gonna flip it back over to you. I know that you don't know so much about Los Campesinos, so I'm not going to ask you, hey man, what's your relationship with Los Campesinos? Because you're going to be like, and that's the relationship. But when it comes to groups like this in the early 2000s, what are your thoughts about these kind of groups? What are your favorite kind of groups? Yeah. What are your general thoughts about like this kind of music scene that we're going to be diving into today?
Well, before I get into my thoughts about the overall late 2000s, early 2010s indie scene that we're talking about, I will say, like, for Los Campesinos specifically, like you kind of alluded to, I had not listened to anything by them before this review. Much like Broken Social Scene, I vaguely knew that they existed. And then I took a look at the track listing for this album in particular, and I saw, not to spoil too much, but I looked at some of the listings of the track titles, and I saw stuff like Feast of Tongues, KMS, Coin-Op Guillotine, and Clown Blood, Orpheus's Bobbing Head, To Hell and Handjob. And the first band I thought of that we covered before was Hot Mulligan, because I'm thinking, these are some interesting names for songs, and this might be where we're going. But, spoiler alert, it's not like Hot Mulligan. As far as the indie scene, though, I really was kind of thrown into it. I mean, early 2010s, I'm still in my classic rock phase. I'm still in my occasionally hearing what pop music is phase. I was starting to get a little bit more into pop music at that point. And then I did this weird thing. I went to college. And while in college, the indie scene seemed to come right along with it. And this was at the time where Arcade Fire was just starting to get hot. Foster the People was about to put the dent in the charts. We were just a year or so away from the likes of the Lumineers and Of Mice and Men, which I am very careful to bring up that band. I will not explain why. But in the case of that, I was just sort of thrown into this idea of what indie stuff is. I remember buying an album from Freelance Whales, of all bands, because a friend had recommended it to me. And yeah, the indie scene I was kind of thrust into, and there was a lot of stuff I liked, a lot of stuff I thought was okay, and not really a whole lot I thought was incredibly pretentious, although in hindsight, maybe incredibly pretentious is the correct term for it. But yeah, Los Campesinos somehow flew under that radar, and then flew under the radar that was put underneath it for me, because, again, I just vaguely knew of their existence before this review. So yeah, I have experience with music like this, but not with this, if that makes any sense.
It makes total sense, man. And I think just talking about like your experience with the indie scene as a whole is gonna be pretty foundational to like how you're gonna be approaching this album here as a whole. And like for me, obviously for those of you who are fans of the show, and Matthew can attest to as well, whenever he was talking about for better for worse, when he went to college and he did that weird thing in that going to college, the indie music scene came with him. Well, part of that coming with him was through the friendship that you and I formed over the years at Geneva College, specifically with the radio show that we did together. So yeah, man, fun times, man, fun times. And I would say like nowadays, like yeah, like that kind of stuff, very foundational for like how like I basically became who I am as a music fan nowadays. As redundant as that statement is to make, like nowadays, like I don't know, like I couldn't tell you like indie now has changed from bands like this to bands like Geese, where one day we might talk about Geese. Who knows? That would be a fun time. But yeah, definitely the term and the meaning has changed over the years. But yeah, I'm excited, man, to dive into this record, and I'm just intrigued to see what our takes are gonna be about it, because it's it's a fun record, man.
It is. This is going to be an interesting discussion because I feel like even though we've had similar experiences going into this, we've also had very different experiences. And yeah, I'll explain my thoughts as I go along as to what I think about All Hell by Los Campesinos. But without any further ado, I say we jump right into it with track 1, which, Ryan, I'll let you take with Coin-Op Guillotine.
So with the Coin-Op Guillotine here, this is a song that has a very melancholic feel, but you get like hope, like strands of like hope throughout, and metaphors of hinting at a revolution against the rich. It's essentially like an anti-capitalist song. So that's at least going to be like some at least decent foundation to understand what's going on here with the Coin-Op Guillotine. But like coming right out of the gate though with the Coin-Op Guillotine, like we're very much within like I'm very much in my happy space with music as a whole, because I'm like, holy lyrics, Batman. And it's lyrics for the sake, like I noted this within my notes here, that they're not forcing out words within this song here. The rhythm and the delivery is very effective. And yeah, like there's countless amount of stuff that's happening within the first verse that is just it's right for the picking in terms of a lyrical analysis. Like you get the bars like, you said your head's on fire and every thought is kindling. I love that. And then one of my favorite bars in the whole track is in that first verse. A tired life is a wild ride for the saddest boy on the water slide when the breadcrumbs only lead to where you've been. Like, fuck me, dude. That's straight up poetry right there. Like, I am just in my happy space lyrically. Like, this is very much, like, I am very much digging it. Outside of the lyrics, though, because I think I can go on about the lyrics of this track for the next, like, hour and 30 minutes at this rate. Like, the vocal harmonies that you get within the Coin-Op Guillotine, they're not very pronounced, but they're very subtle, and they do the trick quite nicely. So I was digging that. The way that the guitar sounds in the track as a whole is very clean, very open, and works very well alongside the drums, who are delivering quite like a little bit of an interesting beat. I don't know if you picked up on what the drums were throwing down. The twinkling effect that you get in the second verse, I found to add to, like, it added a very nice texture to the track. And just the way that the first refrain drops everything down dynamically, and then that band hits you with that wall of sound. It's a trope that I've talked about through our like past couple of our reviews here. Like, you know, it's so good. I love that 100%. And also the violin that you get towards the back half of the track adds a great texture. And during that section where the violin is, like the vocal harmonies are really just popping off. So yeah, the Coin-Op Guillotine is starting things off strong here for me with All Hell by Los Campesinos. And I was kind of wrestling with this fact because, spoiler alert, this song does land in my top 3. And yeah, after some much deliberation, dude, it's my favorite song off the whole record.
Wow. Right?
Yeah.
Right from Jump Street, the favorite song on the album.
Yeah, I can't. I cannot lie, man. I cannot lie. This song got back.
Yeah. Well, I will say, my thoughts on Coin-Op Guillotine. Hearing this for the first time in the first 60 seconds of the track, I knew that this was some Ryan Kearns type shit. Like, it's not just the lyrics being what they are, which I will get to, but going back to our discussion about being in college, there was a band that you brought into Beaver County all the way from New Jersey called Their Planes Will Block Out the Sun. And I was immediately reminded of them hearing Coin-Op Guillotine, because you're talking about those clean guitars, those interesting drum rhythms. It sounds very Their Planes or perhaps late Radiohead coded, and definitely fits right into that indie scene of the early 2010s. So that I picked up instantly. I was like, oh, this is some stuff I'm familiar with, even though I've never heard it before. But then you get into the lyrics themselves, and I agree. What makes this track stand out is just how much wordplay there is going on, because not only does it have just a lot of deep metaphors that they're trying to go for, there are so many religious allegories, not just on this song, but on the album as a whole, that it makes you realize that they are coming from a very religiously based background, that they are probably having conflicting thoughts about being in the real world. And we will get to those throughout. But the lyrical highlight for me off this track was what you mentioned, that chorus where everything drops down, where Gareth Paisley says, "If you've got a cross to bear, call my name, I'll see you there." And I'm just like, yeah, no, those are lyrics you definitely drop everything for. That is a hell of a line that is just so good. And I will say, the vocal performance from Paisley is good, the instruments are good, and everything just sort of brings to the table what you would think of as far as strong indie rock of a certain tone. Because again, not all indie rock was like this. Some of it had a lot more bleeps and bloops. Some even had even fewer bleeps and bloops. You know, the fedora and acoustic guitar, and that's all you need type of stuff. But this fits right there in the middle and very much is of its time. And much like you, I like it quite a bit myself. And as you were talking, not just because you were talking, but because I was more reflecting on myself, made a last-minute switch to my top three, because I also have a top three, and I also have a bottom nothing for the record. And Coin-Op Guillotine does fit in the top three. I have it at number 3.
Circle indeed gets the square, man. And also, like, you know, for full disclosure, because I didn't reveal like my entire hand, my hand mirrors yours in terms of quantity, but obviously not the same, like, you know, top three, because, well, we already kind of spoiled that. But yeah, the bar that you highlighted though with the Coin-Op Guillotine, if you got a cross to bear, call my name, I'll see you there. Lo and behold, a phenomenal line, but it kind of echoes like the mindset that the group was going for at the time, where, you know, we all think that our suffering is unique, but gotta be honest with you, dude. Like, you know, if you just spend like 5 seconds of talking to somebody, you'd be like, no, hey, we kind of suffer the same thing. We're all in this together. So I kind of like that double entendre and just the hitting meaning behind that. But with all that being said, Matthew, I feel like we're ready to keep this gravy train rolling, our journey through all things hell, by talking about the next track, which is Holy Smoke. Not just Holy Smoke 2005. Matthew, I think the floor is yours.
The floor is indeed mine, and with Holy Smoke, the guitars this time are much different than they were with Coin-Op Guillotine. With Coin-Op Guillotine, they were very clean, they were very almost jazzy in a sense. But with Holy Smoke, they are considerably more distorted, and what that creates is a much more aggressive tone overall, at least from a sonic standpoint. The guitars are louder, the drums are louder, and everything feels a bit more mainstream rockish, for lack of a better term. This is something you would expect a rock band to play. And then to match that aggression, you have Gareth Paisley once again going into full-on angst mode, but instead of sort of doting on melancholy and memory and allegory like he did with Coin-Op Guillotine, he's just kind of pissed off. Like, he's just kind of angry at the world, and just frustrated with how things are. Very bitter towards people for different reasons, whether it's just some dude sucks, or my personal favorite line in the entire song, which is, they don't buy the beers I drink, and they don't drink the beers I buy, which, same fam, same. Not that that's always the case. You and I have done a good job sharing beers over the years. But yeah, sometimes you just get beer and the people you want to share with are just like, nah, no. But yeah, the way that this angsty anger is just coming through on this track is very well. And the way that the verses elevate towards the chorus on this song, I also thought was very nice. Like, these guys definitely have done their homework when it comes to just basic dynamics, which is always good in fast-paced rock music and rock music that seeks to have a purpose, which this very much does. In fact, I almost wondered, because of the tone of the song, the guitars being a little more, not out of tune, but definitely in a much more different key, if this actually was recorded in 2005. It wasn't, but it definitely has those very mid-2000s emo vibes, which I can kind of understand. So yeah, Holy Smoke 2005. I liked it. I'm putting it in the good song bucket because it definitely is a interesting shift in pace, but didn't quite elevate itself to my top three.
So for me, with Holy Smoke 2005, one of the first questions that I had was, why 2005? Because, like you, I was inquiring about, like, was this recorded in 2005, or was this like a, I don't know, like a rehash, a Los Campesinos is, their version of the song. But no, it turns out that's not the case. The 2005 reference, though, it basically kind of plays into, you were talking about, like, the band's angst and Gareth's angst here. And the angst is, like, the band's been in the scene for 2+ decades, and they are, they're not the kids of the scene anymore. They're the old men who are essentially Walking Dead at 37. Sidebar: no children and no profession. Walking Dead at 37. That line slaps hard. I don't echo that sentiment, but yeah, like, I saw that, I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna be an old man here soon. Some might argue I'm already an old man, but I digress. But yeah, that's basically the angst that the group is feeling here. And like, you already kind of highlighted the one line that I did enjoy, the beer line. The other line that I did enjoy was, every vodka mixer in the club was not enough. Now it's live, laugh, love, and listen to Death from Above. That line just hits so hard because you think about, like, what it's illustrating. Like, you're up, you're partying in the club. Now, like, you're older, and now it's like, oh, namaste, and like listening to, like, edgy, like, indie rock. Oh, look at Deborah, she is really edgy, man. But no, like, that line hits pretty good. And like you, I did enjoy the fact of how the pre-chorus was, it did open up the feel of the song. It was a bit of into a halftime feel, which is great, and it acts as an excellent springboard into the chorus. And that chorus, dude, oh my god, it's so fantastic. It's very much of its time, within its lane. It's very funny that I said it's of its time, because, like, this was recorded 2 years ago. But if it's trying to echo, like, that, like, early 2000s music, it does it pretty well. Like, you get the high energy guitars, like, they're sounding so good. I like the melody that they're bringing there, and also the drum hits that you're getting in the chorus are pretty good as well. So the only thing that I did kind of, like, say that held back Holy Smoke from, like, reaching its full potential was the song kind of ends abruptly. Like, and it's not the first time within the album. Well, it's not gonna be the only time within the album that we're gonna have a track that's gonna end abruptly. But nonetheless, I dig Holy Smoke. I feel like I'm a little bit higher on the track than you, but it's not the top three. It's not a cut track territory. So honestly, I would put it in the great song bucket. Yeah, it's in the great song bucket.
And that's fair. That's fair. I feel like this was in competition. There were a lot of songs that I feel like possibly were contenders for certain spots. Holy Smoke on Another Day possibly could be a top 3 song for me, but in all honesty, it has some very good moments, but it didn't really do enough to elevate itself to any higher position. But that's just my personal thought on it. And speaking of personal thoughts, let's get into some more of those, shall we? Because the next track off of All Hell is A Psychic Wound, and Ryan, it is time to share your thoughts on this song.
So, with A Psychic Wound here, we're coming across one of the singles off the record, so, keep that into context within our discussion about Psychic Wound, but, yeah. With this song here, it's interesting because it starts out with the refrain of the track, like introducing the whole track, but on a bare vocal kind of front. So that I thought that was pretty unique, getting you into like the melodic motif of the idea of the song. So I thought that was pretty cool. But the like after that, the first smack of sound you hear going into that first verse, again, like you know me, I enjoy a good smack in terms of my musical listening, so smack me up here. But yeah, just moving away from that though, the way that the first verse shifts instrumentally halfway through, it was a fun touch. Like things got a little bit more like I want to say straightforward because, like the first verse, for example, you get the bar, wake me up from drooling on my shoulder. And then when you get to the bars of like coffee rings a perfect circle, I appreciate the beauty. Do you still have that one tattoo? Like things become more energized, more intense. So yeah, I did enjoy that. The chorus is pretty solid. It definitely has one of those big chorus feels to it. I mean, and I also like how when you get into the chorus for the first time, like it's more of a drop down dynamically, but then it builds up, and the band they do execute dynamic changes very well within the track and the album as a whole. And the guitar like coming out of that first chorus, dude, is pretty dope. And I also, again, I love the way the guitars sound as a whole. So, hats off to them for that. And the ways that speaking of about the guitar, the way that the guitar cuts out during the opening of the second verse is a great use of one of my favorite things within music, and that is sonic painting. And like you think about what's going on during this time, get the bar of broke down, blubbing at the pharmacy, begging the doc to dispense to me. And you can almost just imagine just being at a pharmacy and like having the pharmacist being like, hey, your insurance doesn't cover this, and you're like, I need my medication, man, I need my medication. Like that kind of lonely kind of feeling, they encapsulate that so well. I also just love the line, exists with jester's privilege, secular girls with Catholic guilt. Like the concept of secular girls with Catholic guilt, because like breaking down that line, secular, they don't believe in God, or they're more of an earthly kind of presence, and Catholic guilt, like it's a guilt that doesn't belong to them. So that's just ingenious. And the final chorus within A Psychic Wound begins with a cutout of the instruments, and again you get that build up that I already illustrated. So yeah, it's a pretty good song. Not a top 3, not a cut track territory for me. I would honestly put this into the good song bucket.
Yeah, for me, A Psychic Wound, my thoughts on it are very much I do agree with a lot of the stuff you said. To me, sonically, this feels like the midway point between the first two tracks because it maintains the tempo of Holy Smoke, but it has that cleanliness of Coin-Op Guillotine, where it just. There was a point, I want to say, on my second or third listen, where I was listening to a Psychic Wound and I had not realized that it had switched tracks. Like I thought we were still on Holy Smoke, and I'm thinking, oh, the tempo has been maintained almost seamlessly. Like I didn't realize we were, almost didn't realize we were on another track. But what sets this apart from Holy Smoke at the very least is, much like Coin-Op Guillotine, the lyrics lean less on angst and more on reflection and more on metaphor, and not to mention those religious allegories. You mentioned the secular girls with Catholic guilt line. I picked that one up. That was a lyrical highlight for you. But to me, the lyrical highlight off this track is when Gareth says, if you're not the one that's leaving, you're the one that's left behind. I think that's just a great line, man. That is a great line that very much reflects the tone of this song, which isn't screw everyone, but hey, maybe we should do something about it instead of complaining. So ultimately, a Psychic Wound does have a little bit of that philosophical meandering with it, talking about, hey, remember this? Of course you do, because it's a psychic wound that's left unhealed. And much like religion and sex and booze, wounds and scars are very much a part of the lyrical tapestry of this album. Subject matter that is just recurring in all different things. One we'll get to very, very soon. But yeah, for me, I'm right there with you. A Psychic Wound goes in the good song bucket. It's a solid piece. I really don't hate anything about it, but also there wasn't a whole lot to me that elevated itself aside from a couple lines and a couple moments.
Yeah, I think, like, walking away from the track, just the biggest thing that I did enjoy about it was, like, that introduction of the motif at the beginning. And, yeah, I thought that was unique, and the chorus is pretty solid. But, yeah, I think we're ready to kick it into the next leg of the LP. And the way that we traditionally do this kind of stuff is, like, I don't think you're gonna touch upon anything that I can't touch upon with the very next track chronologically. So I'm gonna allow you to take the lead on the next track, which is number 1, Spit, or a bite mark in the shape of the sunflower state. And then I'm gonna allow you to shuffle into long throws.
I will very gladly do that. And I'll start with 1, Spit, or a bite mark in the shape of the sunflower state, which, for those of you who do not know, the sunflower state is the state of Kansas. I have been there once. It was all right. But this song is the first of 3 interludes on this album, and this is the most thought-out interlude of the 3, because what you get is a set of lyrics that's very brief. But even in their brief state, they are heavy on denial and reflection. Basically, this is Gareth Paisley talking about a dream that he keeps having where he's found drunk on the news and all of a sudden his life is in shambles and now he's embarrassed. But because of the way he was raised, hey, spit will help out those wounds, which apparently is an old adage that if you spit on your wounds, they will heal. How much do I believe that? I don't know. Ask RFK. But with this song in particular, I do think that the one standout thing that sets it apart as an interlude is just how lo-fi it is. Because while everything else was very clean and highly produced and very full band, basically you get acoustic guitar and vocal, which does help set apart. And the choice to make the vocals as dry as possible, I thought was a nice touch. So yeah, Spit, for lack of a longer title, it's a solid interlude and it definitely continues the lyrical ideology of the album. Then you get to Long Throes, and it does take a second, but this song is very, very indie coded. Those oohs, those little vocal whoops here. I know a lot of people have talked before about the I forget what it's called, the millennial whoop, I think it's called, where they just replace solos with chanting. This falls in line with that, but I very much dug them because it almost felt nostalgic to hear those kind of oohs. Like if you think about songs like Wake Up from Arcade Fire or Heaven Forbid, Ho Hey by the Lumineers, this kind of has that same feel to it. That being said, the lyrics on this track are, I'm just going to say it, some of the best lyrics I've heard in any track we've done on this show. Like, the lyrics here are freaking phenomenal, dude. Like, I could just go through each one of them line by line, and some of you might be like, holy hell, these are some amazing lyrics, but there were three out there that really stood out to me. The first one coming in the first verse where Paisley says, will they vote for the bastards who would sooner annex paradise? And I'm just like, it's 2026, all the feels, we know what's going on. Later on down the line you get, I'd like to teach the world to scream at all of the above, anxieties and maladies and falling out of love, which I love that reference to. I'd like to teach the world to sing. I'd like to teach the world to scream. We're just going to scream. We're just going to scream our problems away. So I kind of dig that. And then at the very end you get, you stand unmoving while the world keeps turning, thought your heart was broken, but it's only yearning. And again, like that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to just how many good lyrics are in this song. Like, it is a phenomenal piece of songwriting work from Gareth Paisley. And on top of that, his angsty delivery throughout this whole track, especially on the will they vote for the bastards line, just matches it note by note, line by line. Like, he is very much just shaking his fist at the world and hoping that it shakes the world in two. Like, he is putting on the performance. And it's kind of funny because the backing is sort of more poppy than anything we've heard on the album so far. But overall, man, this is just a really fantastic indie rock track. The last thing I'll say about it before decreeing where it lands in my top three, because, spoiler alert, it lands in there. My thought is that it's as if Spanish love songs tried to rewrite Jesus, etc. So I have no choice, based on that logic, to put Long Throes right at the mountaintop. This is my favorite song on the album.
I have to recover because I think I just blacked out at that last descriptor there. So, oh my god. Okay. Yeah. So with long throws, I don't know if it's long throws or long throws. Either way, we'll keep it with long throws. If the UK community out there is just like, no, it's actually long throws. We're just two white guys from Pittsburgh. Cut us a break, man. We love this track, man. So, that might be a little bit of a spoiler alert from my end of the internet, but yeah. So, the way that this track begins, you mentioned that it does take a minute to get started, but when it does get started, it's really good. I feel like the way it begins with at the start, where the vocalization's coming in, the woo woo, the things that you were illustrating, and how the instrumentals came in during that part, it just hits all of the right feels. Like, I'm right in it. I'm right in that pocket. Give me a blanket. I want to nestle up in that pocket all night long, man. I'm right there, man. And for me, what really just set this track to such a high standard was actually the very first bars that we hear coming right out of the gate, which are, God appeared to me, tried to ease my doubt, told him everything's okay, but I'm glad he reached out. And it kind of did remind me of the phrase "you found me," only because of like the whole illustration of like, oh, God finding somebody. But the way that the feels are at that point and Gareth's delivery, it's just encapsulation of like you talk about God as this deity that's gonna like fix everything, but you're still feeling kind of lonely And yeah, it's really good, dude. I can't just help but gush over that. I agree with you. The bar about how the first verse ends with the sooner annex paradise. Oh my god, dude! I wanted to throw myself through a wall for that bar there, and the way that how that ends off and you get into the chorus, that is just so good. And the chorus, dude, it's really really good. It definitely has that feel of, well, I guess back in the day, oh hey everybody, lighters up, but now it's just oh hey everybody, phone lights up. So it didn't look back and forth kind of feel. So I could definitely see that. And the vocalizations that we heard at the start of the song come back in the chorus. I felt like that was a nice touch. And in the second verse, you get that nice guitar lick under everything. And I thought that was very, very good. And it adds such a nice texture. And also the bridge here, it drops down the dynamics pretty well. Love the drop down and how it builds everything back up. But yeah, dude, I think when it came to arranging my top three, Coin-Op Guillotine obviously took the cake. But yeah, Long Throes, whatever it's called, it deserves all the accolades that you and I have bestowed upon it. And what better accolade than it's as if Spanish love songs tried to write Jesus etc. for me. So yeah, Long Throes is my second favorite track off the whole record.
Yeah, no, this is a great track, and again, it just hits all the right notes. It's pissed off in all the right places. It's happy in all the right places. It's very much of the indie rock scene. It's defiant and buoyant all at the same time, and I just love tracks like these, man, where it just everything blends into this, raised fist of art that is just wonderful time and time again. So yeah, it's very much my favorite track, and I'm glad to see it made your top three as well. So, for those filling out your scorecards, there are only one spot remaining on either of our top threes, and we are not even at the end of side A, but we're getting close there. We're getting close, and with that, Ryan, I throw it to you for the next track, which is Feast of Tongues.
So with the Feast of Tongues here, we're talking about another single coming off the record, and the use of vocalizations are back with this track, and they sound pretty good. I very much enjoyed what they brought to the table, and with the first verse and the chorus, they're more soft and stripped back. And you can definitely feel there's a slight tinge of momentum underneath everything. And I felt like that was pretty good, and I did appreciate the strings that you do hear in the chorus. It was a very nice touch considering what this band's brought to the table so far in terms of Holy Smoke 2005 and what we just talked about with Long Throes. Things just it's shown the musicality of the group as a whole. But yeah, when the tempo does pick up, it lands very, very well. But also, here's the thing though, it doesn't explode, and it could have exploded, but it didn't. And I kind of dig that kind of restraint. The drum beat that occurs during whenever things start to pick up was pretty solid. And I will say, though, as much as I've gushed about this group so far, in the second verse, this is where it's... I'm always a fan of, very, descriptive and, wordy kind of, lyrics. But if you get a little bit too much lost in the sauce, if you lose the rhythm, then things can kind of become a little bit disjointed. And that's what I found in the second verse. But it wasn't a poo-poo kind of this is a poop moment, but yeah, it's still noteworthy that kind of held back the track's appeal. And the ending section came across pretty well. I did like the dual vocal approach there, working to create such a nice harmony. And with Feast of Tongues, the lyrical highlight that I had off of it came in the first verse, which was, "If laughter is the medicine we need, then this misery is therapy." And like just dissecting that line there as a whole, like, they say, "Oh, hey, laughter is the best kind of medicine." Like, "Oh, hey, happiness will make you just forget everything." But then misery being the therapy, like the pain, it actually helps you get over the affliction that you're going through. Like, I love the contrast between those two sides of the coin there. But yeah, with Feast of the Tongues, I'm putting it kind of in the good song bucket, maybe kind of leaning toward the mid-track kind of territory. But yeah, it's an okay track. If it wasn't for the second verse getting lost in the sauce, maybe it would have been elevated a little bit more.
Yeah, my thoughts on Feast of Tongues. Once again, you get a very slow build to get to the start of the song proper. But like you said, once it hits, the guitars sound great. And the drums are once again in full force. It's starting to get very similar coded, but this falls less in the category of repeating themselves and more in the category of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, it ain't broke, they ain't fixing it, and it sounds good. But then you get to the rest of the song, which I agree with you. Like, that was the one thing that I noticed throughout a lot of this album, and this track is just an example of that. The way that this band, like, especially with the way that their lyrics are and how poignant they're trying to be, there are moments where you're expecting this big explosion of sound, and it just never comes. Like, especially with the way that the choruses end with, "We'll feast on the tongues of the last bootlickers." Like, that is a pick up your swords and charge into battle kind of line, but there's really no charge from the music itself. Which, depending on your thoughts, I know you said you thought it was nice to have that restraint, and I do respect it, but at the same time, my brain is still looking for that pop, looking for that push, that standoutishness of the track itself, and it just really isn't there. But at the same time, again, for what this song is, and I think this goes hand in hand with the next track we'll get to, is there is a sort of mood that doesn't require the big pop, and I think that's why they've avoided it. But I'll explain a little bit later when we get to the order of the seasons. But for now, I'm right there with you. Feast of Tongues. This is one of those songs where if you're just listening to it and not paying attention, it's just a great driving song that really packs a punch. But then when you dive deeper, it has a little bit of depth to it, but not a whole lot. So I'm like you, putting it in the good song bucket.
And that's her, man. The one thing I do want to highlight, and we'll revisit that this kind of concept later on, at least especially for me. Like the whole, like, it could have popped but it didn't. Like, I feel like it worked here, but there's other moments where it doesn't work. When we get to that track, we will, and I'll kind of allude to it. But like, I'm always, I don't know. I feel like I'm pro pop. In terms of like this kind of like setting, but like I don't know, I kind of like the mood and the song composition as a whole, so I feel like the pop was not warranted. But yeah, the next track though, Matthew, is the Order of the Seasons. So yeah, are you ready to talk about the Order of the Seasons?
I am ready to talk about the Order of the Seasons, and right away, the first thing I noticed, which is the first thing that you hear, is that drum intro, which I thought was really nice. I love it whenever the drums kick off any song, and this song is no different. It's not very, like, Neil Peart solo type of stuff. It's just starting the beat off in a strong way, and then the guitars and the rest of the band just fall right in line. And I gotta give the band, outside of Gareth Paisley, due credit for their performances throughout this entire album. Like, again, it definitely goes into the if it ain't broke, don't fix it category, but, they don't break it. They don't break stride for most of these songs. They're fast drums, rooted bass, guitars that are very much right in line with the melody of the song, whether they're distorted or otherwise. The band sounds good. And Paisley himself also sounds good, as well as his counterpart, Kim Paisley. They sound good on this track, and again, it definitely flows. And there are, once again, a lot of deep, reflective, introspective lyrics. Maybe not quite as deep on this song. It definitely feels a bit more of its note, but one thing you can definitely tell with these lyrics is that they are getting depressing. Like, this is a song where Paisley is drunk and loaded, and he just kind of doesn't give a shit anymore. And he's just very cynical about whatever situation, whatever fight he's trying to fight. Like, this is the indie rock equivalent of someone holding a bottle of booze in their hand, just sort of yo-ho pirating around their living room like, yeah, the world sucks. What are you going to do about it? Hand me another scotch. Like, that's kind of what this is in young, rebellious indie rock form, if that made any sense, which I'm going to assume it did because I said it. Yeah, there are some good lines throughout this song. My personal favorite is the "Give us this day our daily dread." As someone who was raised Catholic, I respect the hell out of that line. It just hits. I'm just like, yeah, no, that's a really, I mean, it's a very simple twist on words, but it's one that is appreciated. That being said, though, I praise the lyrics, I praise the band. I didn't really think this song stood out as much as it did, because once you get that musical pop at the very beginning with the whole band following in with the drums, that's pretty much the plateau it just kind of stays on throughout the entirety of the track. Again, that pop is missing. It doesn't really pop where you think it's going to pop. But, much like I said with Feast of Tongues, I think it goes doubly for the Order of the Seasons. The defeatism that Paisley's going for, and talk about being boozed up and sexed up and just frustrated with the world and not really having the bones to fight. I feel like having a pop for this kind of subject matter would be incredibly antithetical. So I very much more appreciated them not doing it here. It definitely didn't make the track stand out, so I'm sort of relegating this to... I'm just going to put it in the great song bucket just because of that drum intro. It's sort of teetering towards good and great, and I'll give it the great for just how good the band sounds. But it doesn't pop because I don't think it should. It shouldn't pop because of how defeated this song is. There's a line that you don't want to cross, and they did not cross it here, and I respect them for that. But yeah, Order of the Seasons, great song bucket for me.
And for me, I feel like a couple of the notes I want to highlight. I'm right there with you in terms of the line, "Give us this day our daily dread." That was a phenomenal bar. One of the lines, though, I do want to highlight. One of the many lines I do want to highlight, though, more on a humorous kind of sense, is the line, "You sleep on the South Coast with a boy who's milk toast. I'd eat him for breakfast." Like, oh my goodness. That's basically Gareth showing his, little bit of his spicy side. And I kind of like spicy Gareth. You gotta believe yourself, man. You gotta say, that boy who's milk toast, you would eat him for breakfast. So, but... yeah, outside of those couple bars, though, I did how the first verse was structured with the Order of the Seasons. The vocals were obviously taking center stage, and I feel like that's the case for the majority of the album. And, rightfully so, excellent lyrics, excellent delivery. You want to definitely play into your strengths, but I do want to shout out, the backing band. I did enjoy how the bass and the drums were the primary backing band in that first verse. I thought that was pretty good. The chorus was pretty good. I did enjoy the dual vocal approach, and everything sounded pretty solid and nice. I also want to highlight, though, on the lyric writing front, in the second verse, it was structured pretty well, and it was almost kind of like a perfect mirror to the first verse. You think about the way the first verse starts out. "I turn to the booze and my thoughts turn to you, but I'm not blaming the drinks for the things I do." And then how the second verse starts out. "My thoughts turn to you, so I turn to the booze. I'm only blaming myself for the things I do." Again, like you were echoing in your dissection, very much of a self-defeatist kind of mentality, but like as the track kind of wears on, you get more of that dread, that daily dread coming on. So yeah. The addition of like other instruments though within the Order of the Seasons was like, pretty good. Just random like other like auxiliary instruments of note. And then another note about the chorus, I enjoyed the synth effects that you hear during it. And I thought that was a pretty nice like touch there. And the bridge, dude, was pretty great because you get that drop down and the build up, which is basically what all bridges are essentially supposed to do, but specifically within the context of this album, that seems to be the formula that they're following. But you get the concept of like the song title, The Order of the Seasons, with the bars being: the order of the seasons depend on when you were born. I start count in winter and heading for a fall. Like, again, pretty self-deprecating, like, lyrics there. So I did enjoy that. So I feel like with the Order of the Seasons, I'm a bit higher on this track compared to you. I originally was going to have this as a cut track, but in retrospect, I think I'm going to take it one tick down and put it into the excellent song bucket. Only because, like, I think I'm more like blown away by the lyric writing as compared to the song composition. And there's other cut tracks off this record that, I kind of like, you get the best of both worlds there. So yeah, the Order of the Seasons, excellent song bucket for me.
That's fair. And again, this for a while was flirting with top 3 contention. But after a while, I had to be honest with myself and just say, you really just like the drums being what they are. And again, once you get that full band sound, it sounds great, but it really doesn't elevate itself any higher. But the lyrics are very good. I will give Gareth Paisley his due on that. It just works very well. And again, the fact that it doesn't pop, I think is on purpose. I don't know if it actually is, but that's how it's coming across to me. So that's where I'm kind of lying with it.
So before we get into the next set of tracks, which is indeed number 2, music for Aerial Toll House, and then shuffling into Hell and a Handjob. Excellent song title there. But before we kick it into what I would like to consider to be the back half of the album, therefore the back half of the review, Matthew, I have a question for you.
And what is that question, good sir?
If the dear listener out there is enjoying our discussion of Los Campesinos' All Hell, and they want to help support what we do on a week in, week out basis, that way we keep on talking about music, whether we like it or not, man. And we like it, man. What are some ways that they can help show some support? In other ways, what are other ways that they can help connect with us on other platforms? And if the dear listener out there is feeling really, really froggy and they want to, get the Phil Collins review out there, what is a way that they could specifically request that Phil Collins review that we will finally do one day?
You are egging on our listeners so hard, and I appreciate that. First of all, if they want to keep listening to what it is that we do here on Hey, Listen to This, they can just keep listening to this, and how they can do that is finding us on their favorite podcasting platform of choice. We're pretty much anywhere that podcasts are available. We are on Apple Podcasts, we are on Spotify, we are on Pocket Cast, and also we are on YouTube. If you're looking for us on YouTube, we upload our videos every week featuring the audio from our episodes, so that's a way to find us as well. And if you're liking what you're hearing, let us know the way that the platforms you chose tell you to like something, which is either subscribe to our feed, leave a comment on any of our audio tracks, or if you're on YouTube, do the holy trinity of like, commenting, and subscribing to our channel. And that is how you let us know that we are doing what we're doing and that you like what we're doing. Now, if you really like what we're doing and you're wondering who else might like what we're doing here on Hey, Listen to This, because I know some people like this kind of music, but they may not like this kind of music, but they may like conversations about this music. I'm not sure who to do it. I may just spill it out on a big old platform. Well, good news for you is that we are on big platforms as well. We are on social media. We are on Facebook. We are on Blue Sky. We are on Instagram. We are on Threads. And if you're looking for us on any of those platforms, the username to go look for is ttheylisten. Again, that is ttheylisten on any social media platform. Also, if you're just feeling very astute and just want to look up our name, you could do that as well. We have the blue logo with the black microphone icon and the circular titles. That is how you will be able to find us on social media. And speaking of TT Hey Listen, if you want to reach out to us directly to request a Phil Collins episode, but you do not know us directly, no fear, we have an email address you can reach us at, and that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. Again, that is ttheylisten@gmail.com if you want to leave us some positive feedback, some critical feedback, or perhaps recommend a future episode, Phil Collins or otherwise. We have done listener requests in the past, and we would love to do them again. So to recap, you can reach us directly at ttheylisten@gmail.com. You can find us on social media at Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, and Instagram. And you can listen to us by following us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Cast, YouTube, or anywhere you can find podcasts, because that is where we are. And for those of you who've done so on this journey so far throughout 100 plus episodes, 100 plus reviews, thank you. As Ryan alluded to earlier, we're just a couple of white dudes from Pittsburgh. We're not part of any major podcast network. We're not trying to sell you any type of law insurance, any type of dick pills, nothing of that sort. We are just dudes who love to talk about music, and we thank you for coming along the ride, no pun intended. And as always, Ryan, I thank you for being a wonderful co-host throughout this journey. We have gone down some weird and zany rabbit holes. We've also covered some of the greatest albums of all time, and we covered Pearl Jam once. And throughout all of that, I thank you for being a fantastic co-host and just a great dude to talk about music with, man.
Yeah, the compliment goes back to you, man. It's been an excellent wild ride with you. We covered Pearl Jam once, Taylor Swift twice, and Jack White in multiple forms. But yeah, it's always a pleasure diving into like this kind of stuff here, because we talk about like big records, but we also talk about like records that mean a lot to us, and it's a way to like expand our friendship and expand our musical circles, and not musical circles, but like fill in like musical gaps in knowledge that we might have. So, but yeah, without any further ado, I feel like I'm just revving off to talk about the rest of All Hell by Los Campesinos, if you will so indulge me.
Go for it, man. It's on you to talk about interlude number 2 and then take us to Hell in a Handjob.
Oh, man, the song of 2026, am I right? But yeah, with interlude number 2, the only note I have for it is it's a drone instrumental. It's not bad. Like, there's literally no other notes other than it's just like a beep, then it goes on. But yeah, with To Hell in a Handjob, this song kind of reminds me of one of those songs that you would put onto a driving playlist, in terms of like right along there with like Bleed American, or any like high speed kind of let's go fast, gotta go really, really fast kind of songs. But yeah, the verses are again designed to focus more on the vocals, but the backing band, again, hats off to them. They're doing a solid job underneath everything. And the chorus, getting into the chorus, it's pretty solid, and in retrospect, I think it's one of the better ones off the whole album. Think about it right now, I think that's definitely the case. The lyrics that you hear in the chorus very much go back into the very much the anti-capitalistic mindset that the group has been kind of portraying throughout the whole record here so far, where you get the bars, we're waiting at the waning precipice now. There's salt in all the sugar, ants under the leaves. Think about waiting at the precipice, waiting for something big to happen, but there's salt in all the sugar. Contrasting, all the hard work is going to be for nothing. So yeah, that's fun. But yeah, I very much did appreciate what the guitars were doing during the verses. Solid job, just keeping up the melody of the track. So hats off to them for that. And the elevation that you get after the second chorus, though, is just so good. It's definitely one of the highlights of the whole album for me. And that bridge, can we talk about that bridge and how intense it is? You get the bars, there's grief within my flesh and bones. Cut me, watch the sorrow flow, floating in the flood now. The way that those lyrics are accompanied around, the encapsulation of, just heightened emotion with the guitars and all the band just coming together. Oh my god, it's just so good, dude. I very much loved and appreciated that. And, yeah, the line in the third verse is pretty good. And it kind of, gives meaning to the whole song title being "To Hell in a Handjob," in that the line is, "There, but for the grace of God, we all go to hell in a handjob. Undeserved last-minute winner. We're into town without our dinner." So, for those of you who aren't aware about the Christian religion, apparently, well, not apparently, there is of the belief that you're not really born if you if you aren't born, but the seed that is wasted during said acts, it has no chance of reaching heaven. So Gareth in this section here is just hey, therefore by the grace of God, we all go to hell. We're not born in a hand job. I can't believe I'm dissecting a lyric like this, but this is where we're at, man. but as such, because we are born undeserved last minute winner, we're experiencing this capitalistic hellscape because we're into town but without our dinner. That again, that bar is just as delicate as it was for me to try to nuance my way through it on an analytical standpoint. It was just really good. I did appreciate it a lot. So yeah, the only other thing I gotta say about To Hell in a Handjob is we have arrived. We've completed my top three, with To Hell in a Handjob taking that third favorite song spot. And the only reason why it didn't jump up any further, because I was honestly considering it to be my favorite track off the whole record, is it ends kind of abruptly again. I'm oh, I kind of wanted a little bit more from this, but what I got from it, I was very satisfied.
So I'll start with my thoughts on music for Aerial Toll House, which is the second thing. My literal only note on there is, if you say so, if that's what you think the music for an Aerial Toll House is, I mean, sure. I'm not gonna lie, I almost was that petty and put that as my bottom track just because it's so, there's so much detail to how very meaningless it is. But I figured it's not that. It's harmless. It's fine. Whatever.
Dude, I would have came through this phone and just slapped you for that.
And I probably would have deserved it, but that's, we did not cross that bridge. So going on to Hell in a Handjob, very much in the same vein as a couple of their songs. You get that slow burn opening before it really just cranks into high gear. And I agree with you. The band on this track and the driving force that they are, it just sounds really, really good. I'd say they're probably faster on this track than they are on any other so far. Um, and the way that this track sonically builds, like you mentioned, how it goes from the verses being in a pretty solid gear to the explosion on that last chorus after the second verse, the chorus and the bridge, it's really, really, really good. And I would say, just on a listening perspective, this is one of the better tracks on the entire album. Like, it just sounds good. That being said, I do wish the vocals on the big moment were a little more clear. Like, they don't sound bad, but I wish they would have been a little bit more front and center and just really swelled everything up to a full, complete moment. And I feel like they kind of got buried in the mix just a titch. But as I always say, your results may vary depending on what speakers you use and where you're listening from. Also, in regards to Hell in a Handjob, I did think that especially the last verse with the titular wordplay of To Hell in a Handjob, I thought was very, very clever, because not only is he talking about the idea of seed being, saved or, wasted and forced to, not exist, but if you do get lucky enough to be a quote-unquote late winner, now here you are on Earth, trying to struggle for your dinner. I thought that was just a really, really good way to end the song. But I felt like most of the lyrics throughout this track were honestly pushing away from, pretty solid allegories to much more cryptic nature. Like, I've talked about this before with songs where I shouldn't have to have a giant decoder to figure out what the hell you're talking about. And it felt like this track in particular was teetering towards that more than any other, because there were just moments where I was just like, okay, I got what you were saying before, but now it just feels like you're sort of putting words together for the sake of pretentiousness. But all that to say, the music more than makes up for the crypticness, and the moments where everything does works really, really, really well, to the point where, after further reflection, I'm going to put To Hell in a Handjob in cut track territory, because it just sounds so good that whatever misgivings I have about it seem to be outweighed by whatever I like about it. So, yeah, cut track territory for To Hell in a Handjob.
I wondered when the cryptic nature of the lyrics, or like just how just how these lyrics within the album, like when they were gonna start to become a little bit too much, that you were attempting to upgrade your dictionary, your thesaurus, so, or you were trying to get your Los Campesinos decoder out, man. But yeah, I was just kind of curious when it was going to creep its head in. So far, this is the only time that it's creeped its head, but not so much so that you've obviously sunk the track's appeal, because you put this in a cut track territory. So yeah, so far so good. So yeah, I think we're just ready to keep this gravy train rolling with the next track. And that next track is Clown Blood / Orpheus's Bobbing Head.
What a title, man. Like, let's just talk about that first. What a title. Clown Blood / Orpheus's Bobbing Head. Like, that is definitely a choice that was made, and I respect them for doing that. I'm about 99.9% sure I'm not sure what Clown Blood means, but they do try. And what makes this track so interesting for me is how this track, I mean, obviously you can tell by the title alone that there are two pieces to the song, allegedly. I would say there's more than that. I would say there's probably maybe 3, possibly 4 pieces to the song. And considering how thematically it jumps from one thing to another, this just feels like a very weary song in its delivery of subject matter. Like, because you still get the themes of sexual tension, religious guilt, and it almost comes across as a much more frenzied, haphazard version of Order of the Seasons in its defeatism. Like, if Order of the Seasons was about being boozed up and angry at the world, this is that in audio form. This is realization that, hey, I'm down the dumps, everything sucks, whatever. And what really makes this track amazing to me, at least from a conceptual and execution perspective, is that the band and the vocal performances on this track have such a consistent, tight intensity to them that it takes what should be just this wild section of fragments and turns it into a cohesive song. So that I give the band flowers for doing that. Like, on paper, this reads just like a bunch of scribbled out stuff that doesn't really connect with one another. But sonically, it works. Sonically, it comes together as this really solid piece of filler. I do like how the drums have the different types going on. You have like the reprocessed drums and the regular drums just sort of coexisting with one another. I really did like that. And I love again how like the guitars, the bass especially, have that intensity of just keeping the momentum going when transitioning from one part of the song to another. Like, I thought, again, this track should have been a disaster, and somehow they made it work. Now, do I love this track enough for it to be in my top 3? No, I don't. But at the same time, I have to recognize it for what it is, which is just an achievement, if nothing else. So, yeah, I'm putting Clown Blood / Orpheus's Bobbing Head, again, what a title, into the great song bucket just for accomplishing what they did.
And for me, like, I'm gonna just make a mental note because I thought this was gonna complete out your top 3. So, but when we get to that track, we get to that track. But yeah, I felt like this song here did kind of like at least my thoughts and feelings about it. It did switch up the album's like flow a little bit. Like, things start out more distorted and in your face, like kind of almost on like an industrial kind of feel. But I don't mind it. Like, again, like I'm always a fan of when groups and bands and artists can, like, show many different sides within a collective work as such an album. It's one of my favorite things about listening to an album as a whole. But getting into the chorus, like, I honestly, I know I said To Hell and a Handjob had one of the better choruses off the album, but I feel like this chorus here is the best chorus on the whole album because it just has such a strong sense of melody. And like I like the way that I know that I love this chorus so much is I actually noted it twice in my notes about the track as a whole. So yeah, fantastic chorus. I love the cascading like vocal lines that are occurring during the chorus. And that first shift that we get after the chorus makes the song into more of a, I don't know, like a grim, dark, moody piece, like a gothy kind of piece, but I did enjoy that. And then after that shift in you get the after that shift, and you get that second verse, it's ended off with a line, "Can we all calm the fuck down?" And that was a fun line to like kick it into like the next part of the the track. And the band is really kicking it in that second verse. Like that driving beat is just so effective in that first part of that second verse, and then towards the back half it becomes more opened up with like some pretty egotistical lines. Like, you get bars like, "My voice moved Hades, so he extinguished the fire. I'm who they mean when they proclaim the boy's a liar." Like, oh my god, like that was pretty cool. And I did like enjoy the references to Greek mythology there. And also you get more references later on to Greek mythology because, like, we did say that this track was called Orpheus's Bobbing Head / Clown Blood / Orpheus's Bobbing Head. But Orpheus does come towards the back end of the track here with the bars, "Orpheus's head bobs in the ocean. I admit it takes one to know one." So yeah, I did enjoy the Greek mythology there. And yeah, just overall, like, I did enjoy this song quite a bit, and I think in hindsight, I'm probably gonna elevate this to cut track territory just for the power of that chorus as a whole, because that chorus was just so good, dude.
It is good, and this whole track has no right to be as solid and consistent as it is. But again, what Los Campesinos have shown throughout this entire record is just a consistent sonic virtue, which is, you know, fast guitars, fast drums, and making sure everything maintains momentum. They really haven't faltered in that department yet, and there's no real signs that they're going to moving forward. But yeah, I am ready, Ryan, if you are, to pivot on over to the next track, which is KMS.
With KMS, for the majority of the tracks here, like, we've gotten Gareth as being the lead vocals, but here we get Kim Paisley as the lead vocalist here with KMS, and I actually did appreciate the switch up as a whole. The way that her vocals sound are pretty solid. It's definitely a nice change of pace. Kind of reminds me of that whole, like, Pixies kind of feel, where you have, like, Kim Deal and Frank Black trading off vocal duties within that band. But yeah, the track though has a very subtle build to it, with each new section adding a different layer. But here again, like with KMS, like, yeah, you get, like, a gradual build, but there's no pop. And I don't mind the pop though, the lack of a pop within KMS. I thought it was pretty pretty noteworthy. The chorus on the lyrical front is so backhanded, and I love it. And it's so backhanded, but it's also kind of depressive on another hand. The bars in the chorus read, "No lie, I would lay down my life for any rat in the road. Yeah, I'd lay down my life for you." So that's incredibly depressive, but also kind of backhanded too. The instrumental break within KMS was very good. I very much enjoyed the melody coming out of the guitar solo. And the one critique that I do have with KMS though was this track would have been maybe a little bit better if it was just a pure Kim track. I don't mind Gareth as a vocalist here. I very much have, like, waxed poetic about his lyricism throughout this whole LP so far. But for him to come back into that third verse and have his own bar, I mean, I kind of get it, but why not just have Kim have the whole song? Like, it would not have been that big of a deal. But I digress. I'm going to step off my soapbox there. I felt like the outro was a decent way to end off the track. Like, it was just a way to bring everything back to a decent close. So, and the only other note I have about KMS, it was another single released from the record. So, yeah, that's fun to know. Matthew, the floor is yours. Tell me your opinions about KMS.
So, my thoughts on KMS is that I agree with you. Kim Paisley is quite good on this track. Her presence is a nice change of pace. Again, not that Gareth Paisley was anything bad. He's been just delivering fire performance after fire performance throughout this album. But to hear a different voice was a nice change of pace. It definitely pulled a little bit back from the full-on angst that we heard from him for the majority of this record. Her voice is, at least sonically, a nice comforting break. Obviously, the tone of the song is still very much in the mode of this album, which is very angsty, very moody, very introspective. And you talk about that line of, "I'd lay my life down for any rat on the road." And that, again, is going to the religious allegories of, Christ laying down his life for anyone. So yeah, like, that is very much in code and in step with what this album is doing. Also, I agree with you, Ryan, that reintroducing Gareth was not necessarily a bad thing, but it was more or less unnecessary. Like, he didn't have to show up in that final piece. Like, he could just have let Kim have this entire song and it would have been fine. You could argue it also would have been better. One thing I will mention, though, about this track that you didn't mention, Ryan, is that this track, I mean, there's been pieces of it throughout the entire album, but we really haven't discussed it so far, so I'll bring it up now. This band, and specifically Gareth, tend to have a bit of a leftist tendency to their politics, and while there's nothing wrong with that, and I'm not going to get into the discussion of, what side is better, what side is... it's definitely on full display in this song, because my interpretation of this song was basically it is vote blue no matter who with massive theater kid energy. And granted, I'm cribbing a little bit of that thought process from the annotations I picked up at genius.com. But basically it was saying, listen, if the right person comes along in a political sense or in a spiritual sense, that person, 1,000%, I'm going to go with them. So there is that political tinge with this song. But overall, KMS, honestly, I was going to have it as a cut track. I'm going to bump it down just one notch to the great song bucket because it is a great song. Kim is a nice singer, and I did appreciate the sort of plaintiveness of this whole song. It kind of reminded me of something off of Future Teens that we discussed many moons ago. But ultimately, I can't put it on the same level as To Hell and Handjob or anything in the top three.
And that's fair enough, man. And I'm glad that you kind of share the same sentiments about Gareth coming into that third verse. And I agree with you that they definitely have a left leaning kind of a politic kind of standpoint. And that might turn off some people. And if that turns off you, I mean, I totally respect your opinions. You shouldn't have to be preached to within music, and it's your choice to listen to something else. I mean, you're a strong, independent person, so you do you, honey boo boo. But it's a fun track. I feel like for me, KMS would, because I don't think I officially put it into a bucket. It's gonna go in the good song bucket for me. So yeah, it's a decent song. But without any further ado, are you ready to get into the last leg of the record with the third interlude? Then it's gonna transition into Moonstruck. Are you ready, man?
I'm ready, man. I'm ready. First of all, we get that third interlude, which is called Surfing a Contrail, which my only note for that is this sounds nice for filler. The guitar is good, but yeah, that's pretty much all it is. And then you get into Moonstruck, and I'll start by saying this. The band sounds great once again, and lyrically, this feels a little bit more simplistic. This almost feels very coded with the idea of simply being moonstruck or, finding love under the pale moonlight and just sort of, typical romantic cliches, which aren't bad. The lyrics are not bad by any means whatsoever. They still fit in that mold that they have been establishing throughout this whole album. But it didn't really seem as deep or as philosophical as other tracks that we've talked about so far. That being said, can we shout out Mr. Jason Adelina? He is the drummer for this band, and his drumming on this song is kick-ass to the max, man. It's not a very complicated performance, but just the way his drums sound, this goes to him and the engineer of this song and of this album. His drums sound absolutely phenomenal. The way the bass drum just pops off this song and just thumps along with just precision and cleanliness and power. Dude, I'm a sucker for good drumming, and this track is just phenomenal in that department. So, yeah, you talk about To Hell and a Handjob being a driving tune. My vote goes for Moonstruck. This is a crank this sumbitch up every single time it comes on just for that. Whatever the rest of the band does and whatever the rest of the band sings is kind of secondhand. I'm just here for the drums. And because of that, I have no choice but to put Moonstruck in my top 3 at number 2, it's just a fun ride, man.
Oh man, well this is gonna be a little bit awkward.
Oh really? Oh okay.
Well, I don't have a bottom track, so let me start out by saying that. But I'll start out by just doing a blurb about surfing a contrail, and that's my blurb. But yeah, with Moonstruck, I'm definitely gonna have to go back to the track and try to listen in on the drums that you were highlighting, because I didn't notate them at all. And that is probably one of the many things that makes us such a good dynamic pair, because you tend to listen into the drums and you highlight good drum performances. So hats off to you for providing that context there and highlighting tracks like this. For me, one of the things I do want to highlight though within Moonstruck, just for some reason, the melody that is being used within Moonstruck reminds me of a band. It reminds me of a band that we've covered before on this show. It reminds me of the Gaslight Anthem in a sense, in terms of spirit, or just being a sonic relative of Moonstruck. And the song specifically that it reminded me of was The Patient Ferris Wheel, off of the 59th album, the album that we reviewed. Dear listener out there, if you're curious about that review, you know what to do. You're an educated person. You got here today. I'm proud of you. But yeah, just for that fact alone, I did enjoy what was occurring within Moonstruck. I enjoyed the melody that was being used at the start and in between the choruses and the verses, the instrumental interludes. I thought that was pretty nice. And the second verse I found to have nice instrumental details as compared to the first verse. It was adding a nice little flares here or there. The chorus is solid, but nothing crazy to write home about, but kind of gets the job done. And the second chorus does a nice double time halfway, not double time, halftime thing through halfway through the second halfway through that chorus. So I thought that was pretty cool. But I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. It was just a solid track instrumentally. There was nice little flares here or there. I enjoyed the melody, I highlighted, but the vocals, they were just there. There wasn't any standout bars or anything like that. I mean, I did enjoy, though. I do want to shout out at the end where you get the bars, "You and me, antipose, the earth's collapse, we finally meet." I guess it's more appropriate if I highlight the outro start, where it goes, "It's hard to find the romance in a town not known for sunsets." So yeah, I enjoyed the outro as a whole on terms of a lyrical a front. But if I had to give any track, honestly, the distinction of being a mid track, because this is not a bottom track by any means. I wasn't there wasn't a thing about it that I was just no, I'm kind of annoyed by it. It would be this track though, with Moonstruck. It's definitely a mid track for me, and it's almost kind of bleeding on album track kind of territory.
Interesting. I kind of see where you're coming from, though, because I feel if it weren't for the drums, I'm probably right there with you. Yeah, again, the lyrics definitely do seem a little more, I would say bland, but definitely a little bit more dialed back as far as their presentation. And the vocal performance, like you said, it's pretty much there. But again, man, I'm showing my full biases here with that drum track, man. It just slaps, and I was just yes, more of this, please. I just need this in my life. Catch Me on the Day, I would probably flip this maybe with Coin-Op Guillotine in my top 3, but Moonstruck had to be there at some capacity, because if you were just asking me on a plain spoken level, what track would I want to listen to more than any other off this album, I'd probably put Moonstruck in that category. But again, sometimes we have our disagreements, and I think that makes the second week in a row that someone's top track is somewhat flipped into Oh, I'm not so much a fan of this. Again, not to spoil the entire Cars episode, but just a little teaser there for you. That being said, Ryan, I am ready to pivot into the penultimate track off of All Hell, and that is 0898 Heartache. The floor is yours.
And with 0898 Heartache, we get the last single, not the last single released like chronologically, but like the last single within the track listing that we have here. So yeah, again, this track here is a great way that the band exemplifies the use of building a track. The way that this track builds is just great. Starting out with that guitar lick. That guitar lick is hypnotic, starting everything off. Hypnotic and dizzying. Like, I very much enjoyed that. And the way that the track picks up during the second verse, like the heightened instrumentals are just absolutely great. I very much appreciated that. The chorus is pretty solid, by the way. I enjoyed the imagery, as depressive as it was, and the melody was pretty solid. Like, if you zoom into the chorus here real quick, you get bars about grind my bones into the finest snow, lay me and melt me in a crack of sun. So yeah, like that's a very, again, we're getting back into self-deprecating, like, bars here, but it was still pretty good. And oh man, when the drums, like, again, I might be taking a page out of your book, but when the drums come in during that third verse, it adds so much to the track. And I'm always a fan of bands, and the group has exemplified this throughout this LP here, where they add bits and pieces here to, like, they're almost making like a sonic soup here, where they're like, okay, hey, now we're gonna add in the guitar. Now we're gonna add in the drums, and everything just comes across so well, and I love it so much. The instrumental section, though, I'm gonna be honest with you, though, this is where I've wanted a little bit of a pop with 0898 Heartache, because that instrumental section, like, I felt like the track could have benefited from a pop. Like, you almost get it because you get like a meandering, like, guitar, like, jam section, and it's not really a jam section. It's just like the band just, like, just playing a basic, like, rhythm, and then you almost get the hint at a pop about to happen, but it's just a guitar playing the melody for the outro, where, like, it's not bad, but I just wanted a little bit of a pop here. The outro, while I'm talking about it, is pretty good. I enjoyed the concept that's being executed here with the dialing of a number, because you get the bars. If you're calling me a mistake, then tell me why we're both still on the line. So, like, again, like, I enjoyed that, and yeah, it's a pretty good track. So much so that I can't put it in a cut track territory, because I did have to critique about the lack of a pop. Yeah, great song, Bucket Man.
And my thoughts on 0898 Heartache, very much similar to yours, where, again, I feel like this is the last time, a little bit of a spoiler here, but the last time we get a really good full band effort on this album. Again, the drums sound great. I'll have to go back and see if they have the same level of pop as they did with Moonstruck, because once Moonstruck happened, I was like, nope, that's it. That's what I like. But yeah, you definitely get sort of this last full swill of the clean guitars with the heavy drums and the just angst in Gareth Paisley's voice, just really just pushing everything to his last hopes. And again, he's talking about being grinded into bones. Like, he is very much just, he is approaching the same level as, again, Spanish love songs with angst. It's just like, let this world take me for what it is, and we'll see what happens. So Yeah, that's it's a pretty intense track in that regard. But I do agree with you that there is that bit of a lack of pop in there that feels like it's just missing that one little thing to really push it over the edge, to really make it seem like a standout track. But as it is, 0898 Heartache is a solid track. I'm probably a little less on it than you. I'm gonna put this one in the good song bucket.
And that's fair. That's fair, man. Without any further ado, you ready just to finish off the review by talking about the collision track here, man?
Yeah, man. The final track off of All Hell, the one that brings us the title of the track, but is not the title of the track itself, is Adult Acne Stigmata. And this track is interesting, and this is an interesting way to close off the whole thing because while, again, most of these tracks that we've talked about have had full band performances, 90-mile-an-hour drums, guitar and bass working in tandem with each other and just creating a full-on sound, here we get a bit more of an acoustic track and a bit more of a lo-fi sound that we heard on the first interlude. Not full-on lo-fi, but close enough to it. And I found that to be an interesting move because it feels very angsty in its own right, just stripping everything back. And it almost feels very folky, singer-songwritery to talk about stuff like this. And what he's talking about here is how, as an adult, you get that frustration of wanting to look good all the time. And if, one little blemish happens, you get that acne on your face, just like, well, we're just screwed here. And in a sense, that very much parallels a lot of the feelings throughout this album, at least from a religious standpoint, because when you talk about the Christian faith, or maybe specifically the Catholic faith, there's that feeling that if one wrong move happens, there's no turning back and you are screwed. Now, is, the penalty for having acne eternal damnation? I'm going to assume probably not, but that is not something that I am an expert on. So if you want to mention in the comments how close having acne is to eternal damnation, feel free to do so. We appreciate your feedback. But yeah, I thought this track was pretty good. I definitely appreciated how sort of stripped down the bitterness was and how just the frustration of Gareth's feelings are on full display. But once again, it felt like it was lacking that pop. But conversely, unlike 0898 Heartache, I feel it was a little bit more intentional. Like, this is not meant to be a pop kind of track. This is meant to be a final declaration, one final piece of music, one final exhausted note in this long ride of thought process. So I appreciate that for what it is, and I'm going to throw Adult Acne Stigmata into the good song bucket.
And for me, with Adult Acne Stigmata, I appreciated, like you, the sonic switch up with this being the closing track because, yeah, you could have went a little bit more balls to the wall, but no, this track here wraps up the album's themes pretty well. Like, you kind of joked about, like, acne, adult acne equating to eternal damnation. I think the use of acne here is to just contrast Gareth comparing himself to like an object of affection, because you get the bars, you're shirtless in the shade, I'm pulling down the blinds, like, shirtless in the shade, like somebody who's like very proud of themselves and, like, wants to show off like their beauty, and the Gareth is just like, no, I don't want the world to see me. So yeah, I enjoyed that, that contrast there. And I also love the again, throughout this LP, we've gotten many self-deprecating bars. We've gotten bars about like how love, religion, capitalism, but here, like, everything is just kind of encapsulating all around the concept of love, because you get the bars. Can you see? Can you once see what you love without imagining it? Without imagining it gone. And like Gareth at this mindset is just saying, hey, you know, yeah, even though you love something, one day it's gonna go. Can you imagine it being gone? Because it's all hell. And like the way that it all ends up, though, yeah, it's very like I very much enjoyed how the track ends up and how the album ends up, because you get the bars, "You're so beautiful, the sky is blue, but we both know too well it's all hell." Like no matter what happens, we're doomed. It's not going to turn out okay. So like I very much enjoyed the way, as depressive as that sentiment is, the way that it ends up, because it's executed pretty well. On a nuts and bolts standpoint, with the adult Acne Stigmata, the dual vocals work well within the chorus. Him and Gareth and Kim work so well together, and that piano that comes in the second verse was a nice touch. And also within that outro that I highlighted, the use of the piano instead of the guitar is a very nice touch as well. So yeah, with adult Acne Stigmata, I feel like it would be weird for me to put this in a great song bucket. So yeah, I guess I won't put it in the good song bucket, but catch me on a different day, catch me in a different mood, catch me with a different drink in my hand, I might put adult Acne Stigmata in the great song bucket, my friend.
That's fair. And I think we're kind of both on the same page of what the song is. And what the song is basically a distillation of all the feelings that preceded it on this album. Like, this is just, everything sort of stripped down to it being, very frustrated, very confused, very scared, very pessimistic, and doing so in a way that sort of boils down to its ultimate subject, which is, connecting with somebody else. So I think, again, I don't know if it elevates itself up as high as some of the other tracks we've talked about, but it is a good, strong way to close out the album.
Well, I mean, with that note being said, you said close out the album, so the dear listener out there might have noticed, one, that you said that bar, you said that word, that you said that line. But on the flip side, they might have noticed that coming into this review, we officially had 15 tracks up. 15 tracks have been smacked down. Scar cards have been 100% filled out. So there's only one thing left to say about this review.
We did it, man.
We did indeed do it. We experienced all hell with the country people, known as Los Campesinos. So I'm going to go first with my overall thoughts and my rating on the album as a whole. I very much enjoyed this record. It was a blast for me to dive into all the nooks and crannies with a LP that I was already kind of familiar with. I kind of compared doing this review to like doing the, I don't want to say the Mitski review, because my thoughts about Mitski versus Los Campesinos were kind of different. But like the album's appreciation level was along the same kind of wavelength. But yeah, here you get you get like a lot of stuff that's very much stuff that I enjoy. It's very much within my echo chamber. So like you get Coin-Op Guillotine, which starts off the whole album with this pending sense of dread, and like we're in this capitalistic hellscape. Then you get long Throes with what you described as Spanish love songs, doing Jesus, etc. But then also you get like balls to the wall stuff like To Hell in a Handjob, or like unique tracks like Clown Bud / Orpheus's Bobbing Head. And you get different examples throughout this LP of the group. Yes, it's very lyrically dense. I'm not going to ignore that fact. But Also, on top of that, the group does showcase their musicality through many different avenues, like whether it's a soft-smoking track, a balls to the wall kind of track, like a track that shifts multiple times within its runtime, and then also you get sections where the guitar's doing some great stuff, the drums doing some great stuff, and you get piano, like you get a lot of good stuff, man. Now, what this album though does lack though, I did highlight in the one track though that the worriness does work against it in some aspects, and also you kind of highlighted within your own dissection about the album that if you're not paying attention, you kind of can see like some tracks can blend into one another. So that works against the album's appeal as a whole. But for me, I will say though, All Hell by Los Campesinos was a great time, a fantastic time. I'm gonna give it a 8.5 out of 10.
And for me, this to me was a really nice introduction into Los Campesinos, which is kind of ironic considering it's one of their later releases. But what you get throughout this album is just this whirlwind of, like you said, dense lyrics, heavy allegories, self depreciation, and just this constant, consistent tone of sound, which is, as I mentioned, that indie sound, that very fast paced indie sound that is reminiscent of Arcade Fire, the Gaslight Anthem, which I'm glad you put down because I had not made the connection. That's a very strong connection between the two. And it just has that really strong rock feel to it while also being very philosophical. There were moments where lyrically it did get a little cryptic, and ultimately I think the one thing that set this album back in any capacity was the fact that there were many songs that didn't quite elevate itself musically, either for good purpose or just for lack of doing so. So I did kind of miss a little bit of that throughout the album. But that being said, the other side of it is true too, which I don't think there's a bad track on this album. Even the interludes, which I joked might have been in that category, they're inoffensive. They are there for a purpose. And it does create some great tracks like Lost Throes, like Coin-Op Guillotine. I'll throw Moonstruck in there as well. That just create for a really, really good piece of music throughout. So yeah, I am going to go just a slight hair below you with my rating, and I'm going to give All Hell by Los Campesinos an 8 out of 10.
So your my 8.5 and your 8 average out to be a 8.25 out of 10 because
Math
works for everybody. It does not hate, does not discriminate. It's just numbers, man. Get over it. So for me, my next album recommendation, I'm just going to keep it easy. I'm just going to keep it simple. Go with the fan favorite, the cult classic, Romance is Boring by Los Campesinos. I listened to it for the first time this past week, and it's a pretty good album. Definitely, you'll be able to hear one of the big albums out of their discography, and it's a pretty good album. So, yeah, easy recommendation for me.
And for me, I could very well recommend listening to Brave Faces Everyone by Spanish Love Songs for the umpteenth time, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to present another record that very much has some strong emo leaning, some differences in sonic texture, and ultimately some really high energy rock and roll. And that is a bit of a local pick too. And I believe I've mentioned this before and recommended it before, but I will recommend it now as well. And that is the album Esther, or Esther, from Second to Safety. This album, very much in the same vein, has moments of lo-fi introspection, points of high energy rock and roll, and overall just a very introspective clash between religious philosophy and dealings of this world. So Esther from Second to Safety is my next recommendation.
So, dear listener out there, to summarize, Our average rating for All Hell by Los Campesinos was a solid 8.25 out of 10. Matthew recommends Esther by Second to Safety. Excellent LP, man. I gotta revisit that, in the near future. And I recommend Romance is Boring by Los Campesinos. So, yeah, man, if you got to this one in this review, and one, you haven't listened to All Hell by Los Campesinos, one, what are you waiting for? We both recommend it. We both gave it a positive score. And after that, go check out those other albums. Treat yourself to some good music here today, or tonight, or whenever you're listening to this. I don't know. You deserve it, man. You are a hard-working individual. So, yeah. We did it, man.
We did it, man. Some way, somehow we did it. That was a hell of a review. Pun slightly intended. But I'm glad you brought this album to my attention, man. I very much appreciated it. It took me a little bit to get there, but yeah, Los Campesinos is definitely a good group that I will look forward to in the future.
Okay, good. And it's definitely a group I need to really dive into outside of All Hell. So, yeah, that'll be a fun musical journey for me. But speak about musical journeys and stuff that we take on together. There's one thing we have to settle up before we officially tuck this review into bed. Matthew, where are we going next week on Hey Listen to This?
Well, I am not doing this to be an ass, but I am going to flip the tables very hard. And we are going to be, regardless of your choice, we are going to be going from this album, All Hell, which was very lyrically dense, to an album that pretty much has no lyrics at all. So, Ryan, are you ready for next week?
I think I'm ready. I love the introduction. I'm not doing this to be an ass, but here we go. But yeah, I'm ready, man. What you got cooked up?
So I am going to have you choose between two drummers. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm pretty ready.
Okay. Your two options are Roy Haynes or Tony Williams.
Roy Haynes.
All right. So, do you have any idea where we're going with this?
I have no idea, man.
Okay. Well, I did mention drummers, and I did mention that there will be no lyrics, so we are pivoting back into a world we haven't been to in a little bit, and that is the world of jazz. And the album that we're going to be talking about next week is from 1961, and the album is called The Blues and the Abstract Truth by Oliver Nelson.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready to dive into some jazz, man. That is a record that I'm not familiar with, but I'm always game for more jazz, man. So let's do it, man. I'm excited.
Let's party, man. I am very much looking forward to it. I had a thought about that. It's just like, what haven't we talked about in a while? It feels like we've haven't done jazz in a hot minute. So I am ready to talk about some Oliver Nelson with you next week.
So, dear listener out there, if you have never, ever listened to The Blues and the Abstract Truth by Oliver Nelson, well, you know what to do. Listen to that album before next week's review. That way you can have opinions about that album, and then you can have opinions about the opinions that me and Matthew are going to bring into the table. So, yeah. So, what a review, man. I'm excited to put this one into bed. I know it was a bit of a struggle, but let's face it. Being like a person in 2026 is a struggle nonetheless. It's All Hell. We know too well, man.